think more when you talk about how it can change finance, what are the things you're kind of looking out for on these layers? Like at a rudimentary level, I'm really interested in these new Bitcoin-backed mortgages. I think they're fascinating. For me, like I've just bought a house, so the timing isn't right. But if it was in now and I could get one of these Bitcoin mortgages, they actually, to me, make a lot of sense. But what are the kind of things that you're looking at? Are there big changes in finance you think Bitcoin can bring in?
Well, I think longer term, yes. I think basically over the past couple of decades, we've monetized non-money assets because our money's been so bad, right? Because our money constantly devalues. We're like, this is a hot potato. We want to get rid of it. And so we put a monetary premium on other things. And that actually makes those things less accessible for people that just want to use those for the utility value. So for example, if I don't know what to do with my money, so I buy a second home, and I treat that as an investment, if enough people have that practice, it bids up the price of homes and therefore makes buying a first home less accessible to someone who really just wants the utility value of a home. And the same thing for stocks. We've bid up the valuations of stocks because we're saying, okay, I'd rather store my money in a diverse collection of stocks than in bond dollars or treasuries. And one of the things that if you have the reintroduction of credible hard money, it can demonetize some of those assets, take away that extra monetary premium. So they're still valuable. Real estate's still valuable. Equities are still valuable, but you might have less of a valuation premium on them. And that could make them more accessible to people, make their returns better. And you put that monetary premium in the hard money. So I think that's one. But then two, yeah, you have all sorts of like just improvements. You apply automation to finance. So, you have less friction and gummed up issues in the whole banking system, right? And so it's a very manual process, and you can take out a large portion of that manual process and automate it. And so if money moves faster, the question is, how can that influence economic growth rates? So as kind of the world population has aged and kind of slowed down, GDP growth has been on the downtrend. And the question is, if you unlock faster money, what does that mean? And freer money, and more people able to access that money. So for example, if people around the world that are kind of in these, say periphery markets that have trouble accessing good money, what if we expand dramatically the number of people in the world that are able to access good money? What can they do with it, right? And so that's exciting to me because you open up the market for so many more people and talented people throughout the world that can now access this open monetary network.
So if we've gone through these transitionary periods now, we've had commodity money, we had the gold standard, Bretton Woods, the petrodollar system. We're heading into this kind of digitization of money, which we've talked about and you talk about in the article. For you, is this now an inevitable change?
Well, I think the digitization of money is inevitable. And then the question is, which type becomes dominant, right? Is Bitcoin strong enough to kind of push back on government control over it? Or does it run into a number of shortcomings and governments are able to make their Cbdc's rather dominant? And I err towards Bitcoin being successful long term. I think it has the properties of it's hard enough. It checks off a number of boxes, and even the boxes it doesn't check off are within sight of being able to be checked off as technology improves and as it gets just more widely held and it becomes better. And so I think longer term, Bitcoin is you can call it the fastest horse in the race. It's I think the best thing to bet on, even though, for most people, I wouldn't recommend 100% allocation to Bitcoin, but I think it's something that's silly not to have any of at this point. I think in 2022, if you have zero Bitcoin, I think the person has to probably spend more time looking into what that is.
Are you listening, Peter Schiff? Okay, so if we head into a world of Bitcoin winning, what do we lose by not having fiat money, government money, whether that's as we have it now or CBDC? We know governments have levers to help with the economy. Some Bitcoiners will be like, we don't care, I don't care. But you as somebody who's a macroeconomics analyst, is there anything you think we lose that we might miss?
It's hard. So these types of changes, I think it's easy to overestimate what they can do in a couple years, but then underestimate what they can do in the longer term. And so that's the part that's really hard to fully grasp. It could, for example, change the optimal size of a nation state. So if money's more portable inherently, that kind of opens up the competition between different countries, right? So, before if it's harder to transfer your assets, there's more frictions. That means the jurisdiction has a little bit more control. If someone can take the vast majority of their assets with them easily, then it's like it kind of opens up jurisdictions as like you can shop for jurisdictions. And one implication of that is that's something that's really accessible to the rich more so than the middle class or the poor. And so it kind of, that's something that really does advantage you if you're kind of privileged in some ways. And so I think that's going to be interesting implications longer term. That might be something that, if you can get brain drain out of, certain areas that are struggling, where the people that have the resources, that have the skills can get out, and it makes it hard for that area to recover, right? But it's hard to predict long term what that means. And I think it's one of those things that it changes. I think this is like a phase transition. So it's not something that just happens overnight. So I think it could change governance and things in some ways, but I think they're hard to foresee.